I want to bring in now Tim Lyford, who's standing by and via Skype, actually. I think we've got Tim Lyford, director at Bentleys, who's live for us at the Sydney studios. Tim, you know, there was a lot of talk about personal income tax cuts. Obviously, those are the headlines, and everybody likes the idea of personal income tax cuts. But we've already seen a legislated personal income tax cuts. Now the government is proposing even further income tax cuts, especially for the lower income earners. Were you just as surprised as I was that this range for the income tax is really quite large? I mean, we're talking from about $45,000 to about $200,000 here.
That's right. If you look at the changes, it certainly is a very big headline cut in income tax of about $158 billion over the whole term, looking at 10 years. And this is on the back of changes that were made in the 2018 budget. Now, the main change was an increase in the actual what's called the low income and medium income tax offset, which was $530. That increases to $1,080 for the 18-19 tax year. So that's across a wide number of taxpayers earning up to $90,000. But your question about the tax cuts, these come in, don't forget, in 2024, the main change on the tax band from 45 to 200,000, which takes away the 37% band and replaces it with a 30% band. But this is some time away, so the immediate tax cut will be this cash refund, which will be coming back, and that's a much lower cost for the first couple of years until the main changes come in 2024.
There is talk, though, of a possible time bomb when it comes to implementing these tax cuts by July 2024. I read somewhere that the Treasury estimates that this will actually cost the budget a further $95 billion over the 6 years between 2024-25 and 2029 and 30. Are you reading the same thing, a possible time bomb and costing $95 billion?
Well, I think that's right, and those are the figures I see. And I say that goes back to this estimated cost for the overall tax cuts package, in addition to the previously announced tax cuts package of about $158 billion over a 10-year period. So that doesn't sound too far away, and I think those are the official figures that I've seen as well.
The question, though, of course, it's all about domestic consumption. Do you think this is enough to spur people to go out and spend more?
That's a very interesting question. I think the cash refund that will come back, that $1,080 for the 90,000 earners, will come back in sort of second half of the year. Once individuals have sent their tax returns in, they'll get a cash refund. So it's taking some of this cash that the government has taken away and increased taxes. And there is a whole issue around whether with the stagnation of wages, that actually the increase in tax take is coming from more efficient collection by the ATO, restriction on deductions and allowances, and the very successful campaigns around that. So it's pulled money out of the economy. So this is sort of going back the other way and putting a bit more money in by putting cash back in the pockets of some of the lower earners. So I think it may have an impact. Now, whether that's enough to swing things is a difficult question.
All right. Well, I want to turn our attention to... sorry, Gary, you
I was just going to ask, GDP growth at 2.75%, do you think that's on the cards?
Do I think GDP growth is...
Yes, GDP growth at 2.75%. Everyone's doubted it so far. Do you think that's on the cards too?
It's an interesting one. I think it was cut from 3%, wasn't it? And I sort of look at this budget as a budget that's giving away and spending a lot of money that the government don't actually have yet, on the basis that it will come at some point. So they don't want to give it away too quickly, which is why the tax cuts are deferred. Whether we hit those levels is very difficult to say.
I want to turn our attention now to the small and medium-sized businesses, which, of course, a lot of those tax cuts will also focus on that particular sector. They are meant to benefit from these tax incentives and write-offs. Just going from those numbers and just going from what we saw last night, do you think that's enough to stimulate growth with the small to medium-sized businesses?
I think it's very generous, and I think the increase from 25 to 30 will make a difference. I think the raising of the threshold from businesses that were capped out at 10 million up to now 50 million annual turnover will make a difference. The question I have is, like all these things, there's a lot of stumbling blocks in the way before these things come through. There's clearly a federal election very soon, and then these things have to be legislated. So I don't think they'll have immediate impact at the moment, because businesses will not go out and spend $30,000 on the basis they'll get a tax cut without having some degree of certainty. And I think this brings the wider questions around general uncertainty in the market affecting business and business decisions.
There's a lot of talk too about wage growth and the need for wage growth. Even we're seeing wage growth ever so slightly tick upwards as well. But do you think there's enough here in the budget that would actually encourage more wage growth?
I'd like to think that once some of the cash comes back and is re-injected into the economy, it causes some more spending, and I think businesses may do better. We also have reductions in the corporate tax rate coming through between now and 2021, taking it down from the current 30 or 27.5 if you're a trading company to 25. These, I hope, will give businesses more of a cash boost, and the argument is that they'll spend it on their earners and their staff, we hope. So that I hope they'll contribute through that method, yes.
Does that hope then extend particularly to small and medium businesses who are currently feeling the credit crunch, because they're finding it quite difficult to get loans from banks in light of the Royal Commission?
There is a $2 billion Australian business securitization fund, which is there to help businesses receive funding where they're unable to get it from the traditional lenders. There are alternative lending markets around, but obviously those are very difficult to go to some of the different types of credit lender. I think credit is a problem. I think the securitization fund is aimed at trying to assist this and make it better. And again, like all these things, time will tell. We need to get this off the ground and see how it works in practice.
It is. It's all about just waiting to see whether it actually happens, doesn't it? And all, of course, hinges on the coming elections. What are you hearing amongst the businesses on the ground?
Still too close to call. I think it's very difficult for businesses to make a call on this. I mean, don't forget there's a larger number of voters out there who don't run their own businesses, but you've got a significant number of people employed in the small and medium-sized business sector, some estimates around 7 million or so, and about over 3 million businesses, so it is a very big number. I think it's too close to call. I wouldn't really be able to say at this stage.
And what do you think? It's very easy for the coalition to be in power and to promise all of this in their budget. Of course, it's an election budget, as many people have said, but what do you think Labor's response is going to be?
I think Labour will try and point out the unfairness issue, which is still there, and they're saying they want to take some of the tax breaks that are given to wealthier families and individuals and put that money back in the pockets of the lower paid. So I think this will be their response. I think they'll try and match the low income tax offset. It was already higher originally, but delayed for 1 year. I suspect we will see some matching going on when Mr. Shorten stands up on Thursday.
As I mentioned, it was an election-skewed budget, shall we say. Do you think it was enough to perhaps make the minds of those who are in the middle at the moment?
Again, difficult to say. I mean, clearly the tax cuts may have an influence. I do believe that voters have a wider perspective and they look at other issues, and the government has taken steps to address that through big spending on infrastructure, schools, hospitals, and there's even a nod obviously to climate change in there. So I think they're hoping they've done enough on the wider areas and not just the tax cuts. But I don't know, that's too close to call.
All right, all we can do is just wait for May and see what happens then. Tim, thank you very much for your time. Tim Lyford at Bentleys there.